Imagine a city that disappears, not erased from memory, but swallowed by wind, water, jungle, or time. Streets that once thrummed with life fall silent. Markets become empty foundations. Stories fray at the edges until tomorrow's children only half remember names. Tonight, we follow those faint threads. We will trace places that vanished from everyday sight, not always from history, and ask the quieter question behind each disappearance: how does a whole city slip from the map? Truth rarely hides in the light. It prefers the corners. There is a city that drowned in an instant, another that melted into the forest only to be found centuries later under a canopy of roots. Somewhere, an entire port sank beneath an earthquake's breath. Elsewhere, a community vanished without leaving any clear answer. These are not stories of ghosts. They are lessons written across earth and stone. What if the reason we call them vanished is that we stopped listening to the landscape that was trying to tell us everything? We begin with a simple frame. Cities are fragile collections of people, infrastructure, and the natural systems that support them. When one of those systems falters, water, trade routes, political order, climate, the consequences ripple. But disappearance is rarely sudden in the long view. More often, it is a slow fold. Drought tightens, trade diminishes, walls stop being rebuilt, households depart. Then something, an eruption, an earthquake, a shifting sea, arranges the final silence. Our journey will move between dramatic moments and long, subtle declines. We'll look at places the ground forgot and the traces that remain. On the northern shore of the Corinthian Gulf, ancient Helike was a thriving Greek city. Temples, markets, the rhythm of civic life. In 373 BCE, the ground shook. A tsunami and seismic sinking buried the city. Temples collapsed, citizens vanished. For centuries, Helike existed only as rumor, a cautionary tale about hubris and nature's temper. In modern times, archaeologists found submerged foundations and walls beneath marshland. Helike reminds us, one geological breath can turn a living city into memory and mud. Every fact has a shadow. Always look there first. But what about cities that vanish more slowly, where no single disaster explains everything? Mount Vesuvius's eruption in 79 CE froze Pompeii and Herculaneum beneath ash and fire. For generations, their streets lay hidden, victims and houses preserved in eerie detail. The ash that buried them also saved them, sealing frescoes, graffiti, bakeries, and ordinary life in stone silence. Pompeii shows a paradox. Disappearance can become preservation, allowing us to step into a day lost 2,000 years ago. If ash can preserve a city, then water and forest can hide others in different ways. Which cities were simply reclaimed? Angkor, in Cambodia, once one of the world's largest pre-modern cities, slowly dissolved into jungle as power shifted and water systems faltered. Jungles became wrapped in roots. The jungle swallowed canals and roads. Angkor didn't fall overnight. Ecological strain, shifting trade, and political change nudged it into silence. Modern surveys revealed its massive scale, proving it was never a single ghost city, but a vast urban network quietly reclaimed by nature. Not all absence is empty. Sometimes the ground keeps the work of 1,000 years, patient as sleep. In Micronesia, the basalt-built city of Nan Madol rose on artificial islands and canals. For centuries, it stood as a marvel of ocean engineering, then faded. Social shifts, resource strain, disease, perhaps all played roles. Nan Madol shows that even island capitals can slip away, their stones left to tide in memory. Some sites vanish because people leave. Others are taken by water slowly, not in one wave. In 1959, the Chinese city of Xichang, the Lion City, was deliberately flooded to create a reservoir. Temples, gates, stone lions, entire neighborhoods sank into still water. For decades, it was forgotten until divers returned. Xichang asks a modern question. When we reshape landscapes, what do we choose to lose? Sometimes disappearance is not an accident. It is the cost of what we decide to build. Near modern St. Louis lay Cahokia, a city of mounds and plazas once home to tens of thousands. It thrived, then declined by the 14th century, likely due to environmental strain, climate shifts, and social pressures. When Europeans arrived, they found only silent mounds. Cahokia shows how easily a complex society can fade when ecological foundations weaken. And what about cities that reappear, discovered only because someone kept pulling at a forgotten thread? Machu Picchu, perched above the clouds in Peru, was never truly lost to locals, only to outside history. Built by the Incas and abandoned during conquest, it remained hidden from the world until the 20th century. Its story reminds us, sometimes a city hides in geography, waiting for eyes prepared to see it. A city can be hidden not by force, but by the quiet of its own geography. Port Royal, Jamaica, once the wickedest city on earth, vanished in minutes in 1692 when an earthquake liquefied the ground and sent buildings sinking into the harbor. A thriving port turned into underwater ruins at the turn of the earth. It remains a sunken time capsule of risk and excess. Not all disappearances come from nature. Some fade because power shifts, myths distort truth, or history chooses the wrong storyteller. Great Zimbabwe once ruled a powerful African kingdom. Trade routes changed, ecological pressure mounted, and its population declined. Later, Europeans denied its origins, erasing its legacy a second time through myth and prejudice. Rediscovering its true story restores what time and narrative both tried to hide. When a city's story is told poorly, it risks vanishing twice from landscape and from truth. And then there is Roanoke. In 1587, settlers arrived. 3 years later, they were gone, leaving only the word Croatoan. For centuries, theories filled the void: disappearance, violence, the unknown. Modern evidence suggests something simpler: movement, integration, adaptation. Roanoke reminds us that not every disappearance is a mystery. Sometimes it's a migration history refuses to see. Across these stories, a pattern appears. Cities do not vanish from a single cause. They fade through intertwined forces: nature, economics, climate, politics, and human decisions. Sometimes landscapes change and cities can't follow. Sometimes we rewrite maps and forget what once was. To say a city vanished is often to admit we stopped listening long before it disappeared. Even silence is a message. We must learn to read it patiently. So what do vanished cities teach us? Humility, attention, care for the stories we choose to tell. Cities are not immortal. They rise from cooperation and crumble when those bonds break. Today's cities face echoes of these ancient pressures: climate strain, shifting resources, uneven growth. The past is not warning us with fear, but with evidence, if we're willing to listen. Not all answers are final. Some simply wait. The cities that vanished are not ghosts. They are witnesses to ingenuity and fragility, to ambition and consequence. They remind us that every place we build holds both endurance and impermanence. If we are wise, we will listen to what remains and let the vanished teach the living.